Hello and welcome back to Star Citizen. My name is Evenlease, and today on 10 Minutes More or Less Ship Review, right behind me, the Anvil Asgard. Let's go ahead and take a look. Welcome back to another review, and thank you to the three that joined me today in making this review amazing. I really do appreciate your help. Now, starting with the Anvil Asgard here. This ship is a heavy vehicle transport or drop ship. Now, it's not your typical Valkyrie-style drop ship where you're going to have a bunch of seats in there for troops, but it is the style of drop ship, kind of like a Hercules, where you're going to load a tank or a ballista or pretty much any ground vehicle in the game in the back of this thing, and I mean that. Any ground vehicle currently released in the game, you can fit back there, but anything big like a tank or a ballista, you're only fitting one. So that is still amazing, and with this ship being much smaller than a Hercules, you can get into some very tight areas and much smaller landing zones with this ship, which is just truly awesome. But right now, with the current ground vehicles, there is kind of an issue with that. So I want to talk about that first. The tank, the ballista, a lot of these bigger ground vehicles have extreme anxiety issues, and they shake, they rattle, they don't want to be anything to do with the inside of a ship. And so when you try to pull that vehicle out of a ship, it just most of the time is going to destroy you or throw you around, and it'll take your Asgard and make it just a pile of rubble, which is honestly too bad. The biggest feature of this ship is transporting those big vehicles, but there's also a second big feature of this ship, which we'll talk about here in just a moment. This ship, if you were to buy it on the Pledge Store, is $325 warbond, which means you buy it with real money and you don't use store credit, or you can buy it for store credit for $350, which is pretty nice. It is not available to purchase in-game with UEC at this time, but will be in the future, so keep an eye out for that. You have a 17-minute claim time, or if you were to expedite it, it is 4 minutes and 15 seconds, because you know how it goes. If you fly this ship into a battle zone and you end up hitting the ground a little too hard and you explode, well, you can get back out there in 4 minutes to go and pick up, hopefully, the remnants of a tank you were trying to drop off, or bring a new one in. That's always a good idea. Now, the pilot does have DPS to sling, so plenty of damage to use and throw, with 1,176 damage per second due to the 6 size 3 CF-337 Panthers that the pilot has control over, and they also have control over 16 size 3 Arrestor 3 missiles, which is pretty awesome. It sits there on the top of the ship like a missile turret. Everything we tried, though, we can't get that missile turret to rotate, so no rotation from the turret itself. It does just face forward, so if you have an eye tracker or something, obviously wherever you look, you can lock onto a target and fire those missiles, and they'll typically track. But yeah, that is pretty cool. It's a nice looking missile turret, and something that I always asked for with the Valkyrie is I wish they had missiles, because when you're dropping down with troops or a tank like this, it's good to put in that barrage before you hit the ground and let off any of your people. Now, there is also a manned turret on the bottom front of this ship that outputs 588 damage per second due to the 2 size 4 CF-447 Rhinos. Honestly, the weapons package you have on this thing right now is fantastic, and I would leave that alone. You could obviously put attritions on here if you're doing PvE, and that is what a lot of people will do, because you do output a little bit more damage, but you do lose a lot of your round velocity. So if you're at any point thinking you're going to be getting into PvP or org battles or anything like that. I would just leave it with the CF package, as that is a fantastic amount of firepower. Now, this does have 4 size 2 military grade C shield generators outputting 18,960 bubble shield, which is honestly a great amount of shield, because when you're out there getting attacked or you're landing your tank into the battlefield, you're going to have plenty of shield generation before you have to worry about them damaging your ship hull or your health pool, unless they're hitting you with ballistics, of course. But even then, you do have some ballistic mitigation, so that is pretty nice. You're sitting at 77,000 ship health points, and of course, a lot of that is thrown into the wings or the engines or the engine wings, and that is something to consider, but it's not the majority of that, right? The majority is going to be in this long, main body fuselage area of the ship, so that is pretty nice, and that's a great amount of ship HP. It's better than what the Valkyrie used to be. They upped the Valkyrie health pool. Now it's even more than what you would see here in the Asgard, but it's finally these drop ships are getting the health pool they deserve to go out there into a combat situation. Now, you do have a top SCM speed of 203 with a 425 forward boost and a 240 backwards boost with a top nav speed of 1,075. And then your pitch yaw roll is a 33, 28, 95, boosted 39, 33, 114. Now, again, this thing is meant to go into situations that could be potentially extremely hostile and dangerous. So you got to ask, what type of countermeasures do you have? You have 192 flares and 20 noise, which is honestly fantastic. You don't see any fighters out there with those numbers, and you definitely don't see that with a lot of different crafts out there. So maybe they're starting to up the amount that you're going to start to see with these newer ships. I don't know, but that is a great amount, and I love to see that. Now, you also have 97.5 SCU of hydrogen fuel and 1.85 of quantum fuel. I want to be really honest with you. 1.85 SCU of quantum fuel is honestly really low. It's really low, and I wish it was closer to 3 to 3.5, because this is a combat drop ship. There should be no reason that I jump from Crusader all the way to Microtech, and I already need to refuel, or potentially need to refuel soon, when this thing should be jumping around a little bit more before it needs to do that, because you're going to be jumping in and out of situations, potentially quite a bit, and it shouldn't have the fuel tank of a fighter. It really shouldn't. So there's a little bit of a hit there. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the interior of this ship. And obviously, right now, I'm on the exterior of the boat. And you'll see you do have, of course, your side entrances like you do on the Valkyrie, which does have little miniguns here. Right there, one of them, as well as on the other side, there's another. And then you do have these little platforms here that you can actually jump up through and go in right there, as well as a entry and close button right there. Now, at the back of the ship, this is your only other entrance. So other than those, those side doors, you do have this back ramp here, which is much more durable looking and much bigger than the Valkyrie, because you're fitting a ton of either cargo or a tonk or a ballista, something very heavy right here through this door. So we tested it. We brought a tonk on here. We brought a ballista on here. It did not end well, because right now the ground vehicles have some major issues, and it's just not a pretty sight. So what else could you do with this ship? Well, this thing is a fantastic cargo hauler, sitting at 180 SCU of cargo. Now, I will say that is 4 32 SCU containers, 24 size 2 SCU containers, and then 4 size 1 SCU containers, allowing you to load this thing up completely, which looks fantastic. And when you do load it up, it goes all the way to the ceiling, and it leaves you plenty of room to walk. This right here is where you would be when you're walking among the side here. Same on the other side, allowing you plenty of space to walk when you have all 180 SCU loaded in here. Again, 4 size 32 containers, 24 size 2 containers, and then 4 size 1 containers, allowing you to fully outfit this ship. Now, the ship does have a full components pass, including relay stations all over the place, including fire extinguishers for the inbound engineering that is coming to us here soon, and as well as other access like shield generators, components all along these walls and in the back area, which will start here on this floor. Again, these side doors have these miniguns that you can go ahead and deploy. When you walk up to them, you just hit deploy, and it usually would do that. Right now, I'm going to hold F on it, and let's see if I can deploy. So it thought it was retracted or deployed already. So I'm going to go ahead and try to deploy it now. There we go. Much better. So once you deploy that, you can go ahead and just grab onto the gun, and you have quite the firing angle compared to something like the TAC where you don't have that firing angle. This is actually really nice. So that is a bonus for me. Now, when you do have a vehicle or cargo loaded in here, you do have door controls here at the back that if you press F, it will close that back ramp, which is truly amazing because when you have a Tonk or a Ballista, it gets really tight within this ship, and you don't want to have to walk all the way to the back to use that button, and you can close your door with these side door buttons as well. Now, also, you do have storage containers, one here as well as one right on over here. Now, you would think there would be 3, but it's only one accessible. So one accessible right here, as well as one accessible right on over here. Now, when you open these doors on the first level here, you do have 2 jump seats, one here and one on the other side through this nice little walkway that you don't have on the Valkyrie, so that's pretty cool, as well as an engineering terminal, which is currently being used, and another fire extinguisher, as well as more relay stations, and you have component access within like the walls and stuff, so you just hit these buttons and they do become visible for you, which is pretty nice. Now, this is where you would access your manned turret. You'd go ahead and get in here, which we'll go ahead and do really quick. Now, you do have full rotation on this thing, and it is like 360 degrees, and you can look fully down and everything, and it does give you great visibility underneath the ship, which is really nice. Obviously, when you're landed, you just have to be very careful, because if you point the guns down, you're going to probably fling your ship in some certain direction, and it could be quite scary. Now, let's go ahead and take a look. There's another component door here, and as you can see, it's your jump drive and a couple other things. It looks pretty nice. Honestly, the interior is quite well done for what this ship is meant to be in this, style. So with that, we're going to climb up here and take a look at the living area. Somebody in chat earlier was like, I bet you can't keep this under 10 minutes. You're right. I can't. There's just so much to look at, even in this ship. This right here does have a button that you can use, either there at the bottom or right here. If you were to close this and you have your ship locked, nobody's going to be able to come up here if they're not a part of your squad or group. So that's pretty cool. And then right here, you think this is just an open area. This is glass. It's not an open area. You can't walk through here. You could potentially shoot through there once penetration's there, but now to your left when you get out of the ladder, right, you do have your bathroom with a toilet, a little bit of a med kit and, O2 supply emergency, as well as a sink with a mirror that's at your, waist level here. So you just have to really bend over, and not much room to put your hands there either. It's kind of a complicated sink. It's this whole situation, right? The ship is like, we have this whole wall, but we're going to put the smallest sink possible in here. So that is one way to do it. And then over here in this beautiful looking living arrangement, you do have 2 beds, both with a screen, so you can go ahead and watch your shows, and as Scoobs is doing, probably Netflix and space chill. So we'll go ahead and close that door, leave him be, right? Give him some privacy. Now, right outside that door, you do have a nice little kitchenette area or food area that you'll be able to go ahead and, craft your food someday, as well as a nice coffee machine here, which is nice. I mean, it's a pretty nice little setup. This ship is supposed to go out a little bit more of a distance, so it's nice to see. And then right here, you do have 2 suit lockers. This ship is meant to only have a crew of 2. Now, you do have 2 jump seats down there, but that's because when you bring a tank or something on here, you don't want them just to sit in the tank. You want them to have a nice, comfortable seat on the ship, and that's what they do. And then you have a nice weapons locker here that you can place up to 4 weapons or 6 handguns or a much larger weapon like a railgun, which is pretty nice. Now, if we make our way down the ladder here, you're going to see you do have the pilot area, and this cockpit looks pretty nice. I'm going to go ahead and show you a combat footage really quick, and before I do, let's check out this little button here. Is it going to work? Yes, it is. So you open that button, nice little area that's going to be some more components, but as of right now, not there. Too bad. You can maybe shove a couple guns in there, hide them away. Nice fire extinguisher. Let's take a look at some combat footage. You're going to have some first-person action with me flying, and then the second footage is with Zero flying. So, and then I'll give you my score.
next target. Here we go.
Copy.
All right, as you can see, this ship is very capable of fighting, and you can load tons of cargo in there. I mean, 180 SCU is pretty cool, and you potentially someday can load some, big vehicles. Right now, it's not recommended. You're probably going to end up in a very bad situation, and it's not going to go too well for you. And it can definitely withstand a fight, but it doesn't have the greatest amount of damage, output, because you only have size 3 weapons, 6 of them, and then you have 2 size 4 weapons, and their capacitors, they're not terrible. It's a smidge over 100, which is great, but you do shoot through those rounds quick, and honestly, you don't have any size 5 weapons, so penetration values with engineering coming, it's going to be a little bit wonky, but you do output some firepower, and it's a fun ship. I could absolutely see this ship becoming a daily flyer for many out there. With that, this ship for me right now in its current state is an 80 out of 100. I honestly wished it was higher, and I do think it's going to be fantastic for that transport or using cargo, but there's just a lot of areas that if you were to compare it to something like the Valkyrie or other ships in this nature and class, it just swings a little low. Its firepower is a bit lower. Its turret firepower is a little bit lower. You have missiles, which is fantastic, but your HP, your speed, your maneuverability, all these things are all a little bit lower, and then a ship like this should definitely have some more quantum fuel. So let me know what you think of the Asgard down in the comments below. Did this just become your new, daily flyer? Because I'm totally going to keep this ship. I think the paints look fantastic. Love the idea of being able to load the cargo and big vehicles someday. I think it's just truly an amazing ship, and it'd be a lot of fun to bring out rock mining. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. You guys are all the best and the greatest supporters, and I do apologize for my voice. I'm currently a little bit under the weather, so let's go ahead and take a quick look at a quick blooper of Zero crashing my ship into the side of a station. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being here. Y'all have a great one. See you in the next one.
Whoa, well,
you just exploded into the side of a station.